What if I told you there's a man who has everything? Power, wealth, the world at his feet. Yet his heart is locked away, untouched by love. A billionaire so cold, so untouchable, that even the most beautiful, the most cunning, the most desperate couldn't crack his armor. But then, she walks in. Drenched in rain, with no name, no agenda. Just a pair of eyes that see right through him. And in that moment, the unthinkable happens. His frozen heart skips a beat. Who is she? Why does she affect him like no one else? And most importantly, what happens when a man who can't love meets the one woman who might destroy him? Stick around, because this story will mess with your emotions in ways you never saw coming. Let's be real. You're here because you felt it too. That moment when love hits you like a freight train, when logic fails, and all your rules crumble. Maybe you've been the billionaire in your own life. Guarded, untouchable, convinced love was a weakness. Or maybe you've been the woman in the rain. Unexpected, raw, a force of nature someone couldn't ignore. That's why this story isn't just about them. It's about you. It's about the walls we build, the chances we don't take, and the one person who changes everything. And I promise by the end of this, you'll get answers to the questions that keep you up at night. Asterisk, can love really conquer all? Or are some hearts too broken to fix? Asterisk. Now, I know what you're thinking. Asterisk, another cliché rich guy romance star. But trust me, this isn't that. This is darker. Deeper. More dangerous. Because when a man who spent his entire life believing love is a transaction suddenly feels something real, it doesn't just break his rules. It rewrites them. And the woman? She's not some damsel waiting for rescue. She's the storm he never saw coming. So if you're ready for a love story that's as unpredictable as it is addictive, don't you dare click away. Because the twist at the end? It will wreck you. Meet Alexander Graves, ruthless, brilliant, a man who trades in billions but has never once traded in love. His heart isn't just guarded. It's forgotten. Until her. A woman with no last name, no past. Just a haunting presence that lingers like the rain she drags into his penthouse. She shouldn't matter. He shouldn't care. But when she looks at him, it's like she knows the secrets even he's buried. And that terrifies him. Because in a world where he controls everything, she is the one variable he can't calculate. Is she his salvation? Or his downfall? By now, you're hooked. You need to know, asterisk, what happens next. Asterisk, does he push her away? Does she unravel him? Or does this twisted game of hearts end in a way neither of them expected? Here's the truth. The answer is worse than you think. Because when love isn't just a feeling but a weapon, someone always gets destroyed. So tell me, who do you think breaks first? The billionaire who can't love? Or the woman who refuses to let him go? The answer is coming. But fair warning. Asterisk, you might regret finding out Alexander Graves didn't believe in fate until the night she walked into his life. The storm had been relentless, pounding against the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse like an omen. He was used to controlling everything, the markets, the people around him, even the way emotions were doled out in calculated doses. Love. A myth. A weakness. A distraction for those who couldn't handle the brutal truth of the world. And yet, when his security dragged in a drenched, shivering woman caught trespassing on his private property, something inside him shifted. She wasn't begging for mercy or offering excuses. She just stood there, water dripping from her dark hair, her gaze locking onto his with an intensity that made his chest tighten. Who the hell was she? The woman, who called herself only Lena, was an enigma wrapped in secrets. She had no ID, no phone, no traceable history. Just a single waterlogged notebook filled with sketches, asterisk of him star. Not the public Alexander Graves, the billionaire tycoon splashed across Forbes covers, but him, the man behind the mask, the one who never let anyone close enough to see the cracks. When he demanded answers, she simply smiled, a slow, knowing curve of her lips that sent a chill down his spine. "You'll figure it out," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Asterisk. Or maybe you're afraid to. Asterisk, that should have been his cue to throw her out, call the police, erase her from his life like he had with every other inconvenience. But he didn't. And that was the first mistake. Meanwhile, in the shadows of Alexander's empire, something darker was stirring. His board members whispered about his sudden distraction, his uncharacteristic hesitation in a high-stakes merger. His oldest friend and right-hand man, Daniel, watched him with wary eyes, sensing the shift but unable to pinpoint the cause. "You're playing with fire," Daniel warned, but Alexander barely heard him. Because Lena wasn't just a mystery. She was a threat. Not to his company, not to his wealth, but to the one thing he'd sworn to protect at all costs: his control. Every time she looked at him, it was like she could see the boy he'd been before the money, before the power, before he'd locked away every soft part of himself. And that was dangerous. Then came the dreams. Vivid, suffocating flashes of a past he'd buried. A childhood spent in foster homes, the gnawing hunger of being unwanted, the first time he learned that love was just another currency people used and discarded. He hadn't thought about those years in decades. So why now? Why her? Lena never spoke about herself, but the way she moved through his penthouse, like she'd always belonged there, unnerved him. She left traces of herself everywhere: a half-empty coffee cup on his desk, a stolen shirt draped over his chair, the faint scent of rain clinging to his sheets. And the worst part? He didn't stop her. But the real turning point came when he found her standing on his balcony at 3 a.m., the city lights reflecting in her eyes like shattered glass. Asterisk. "You don't remember me, do you?" Asterisk, she asked, her voice barely audible over the wind. And for the first time in his life, Alexander Graves felt something terrifying: uncertainty. Because the truth was, there was something familiar about her. Something buried so deep he couldn't reach it. Was she a ghost from his past? A stranger playing a twisted game? Or something far worse, the one person who could make him feel again? The pieces were there, just out of reach. The way she flinched at the sound of breaking glass. The scars on her wrists she always hid under long sleeves. The way she looked at him like she was waiting for him to remember. And then there were the messages, anonymous, untraceable, showing up in his encrypted inbox. Asterisk, "She's not who you think she is." Asterisk, asterisk. "Ask her about the fire." Asterisk, asterisk, "Run." Asterisk, but Alexander had never run from anything in his life. And he wasn't about to start now. Even if it destroyed him. By now, you're probably asking the same questions he is. Asterisk, who is Lena? What does she want? And why does it feel like she's been waiting for this moment longer than he's been alive? Asterisk, the answers are coming, but here's what you need to understand. This isn't just a love story. It's a reckoning. And the storm isn't over yet. In fact, it's just beginning. So tell me, do you think he'll walk away? Or will she pull him under? Stay tuned, because the truth? It's worse than you think. The city lights blurred outside Alexander's penthouse windows as the storm inside him raged harder than the one that had first brought Lena into his life. He'd spent sleepless nights digging through old records, hiring private investigators, even hacking into sealed databases. Anything to uncover the truth about the woman who dismantled his carefully constructed world with nothing but a look. But every lead hit a dead end. It was as if Lena had materialized from the rain itself, a phantom with no past and no fingerprints. The more he searched, the more she seemed to slip through his fingers, her laughter echoing in his mind like a taunt. Asterisk. "You'll figure it out." Asterisk, but he hadn't. And that terrified him more than any boardroom betrayal ever could. Then came the envelope. Left on his pillow while he slept, the paper still faintly warm as if someone had held it for hours before placing it there. Inside was a single photograph, a crumbling orphanage, its windows boarded up, its walls scorched by old flames. Scrawled on the back in handwriting that matched Lena's. Asterisk, "You left us there." Asterisk, his breath caught. Because he recognized that place. The smell of smoke, the screams in the dark, the way his small hands had clawed at the locked door. Memories he'd burned out of his mind decades ago came flooding back. But the real shock? The face of the little girl in the corner of the photo, her eyes wide with fear. Lena. She hadn't just known his past, she'd lived it. And if that was true, then every moment between them had been a lie. A revenge plot years in the making. Across town, Daniel paced his apartment, the weight of his own secrets pressing down on him. He'd known. Not everything but enough. The fire at St. Mary's Orphanage hadn't been an accident. It had been covered up by the Graves family to protect their reputation after Alexander was adopted. And Lena? She wasn't just a survivor. She was the girl who'd pulled Alexander from the flames that night. The one who'd been left behind when the Graves' money whisked him away to a life of luxury. Daniel had tried to warn him, to protect him from the truth, but now it was too late. Because Lena wasn't acting alone. Someone else was pulling her strings. Someone who wanted Alexander broken. And they were closer than he could possibly imagine. The tension between Alexander and Lena crackled like live wire. He confronted her with the photo, his voice raw with betrayal. Asterisk, was any of it real? Asterisk, for the first time her mask slipped, just for a second, and he saw it, the hurt, the fury, the years of loneliness that mirrored his own. But then she smiled. Slow and dangerous. Asterisk, does it matter? Asterisk, she whispered, stepping so close he could feel her breath on his lips. Asterisk, you're already mine. Asterisk, and with that, she was gone, vanishing into the night like she'd never existed. But she'd left something behind. A single playing card, the Queen of Hearts, with an address written in red ink. An invitation. A trap. Either way, Alexander knew he'd walk into it. Because this wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about who would survive the future. The stakes had never been higher. The board was revolting, his investors pulling out, his entire empire teetering on the edge. And now he had to face the truth. Lena hadn't come back for revenge. She'd come back to finish what they'd started. Because that fire hadn't been the end of their story. It had only been the beginning. So tell me, do you think he'll meet her at that address? Or is this the moment Alexander Graves finally learns what it means to run? Stay tuned. The final act? It's going to destroy them both. The address led Alexander to the ruins of St. Mary's Orphanage, its charred skeleton looming against the night sky like a ghost from his nightmares. The air smelled of damp ash and old pain, the kind that never truly fades. He stepped through the broken doorway, his polished shoes crunching over decades of debris, his pulse roaring in his ears. And there she was, Lena, standing in the exact spot where they'd last seen each other as children, her back to him, silhouetted by moonlight. But she wasn't alone. A figure emerged from the shadows. Daniel, his face grim, a gun glinting in his hand. The betrayal hit Alexander like a knife to the gut. His oldest friend. His most trusted ally. The man who'd known the truth all along. Lena turned, her eyes glittering with unshed tears. Asterisk. You really don't remember, do you? Asterisk, she whispered. And then it came crashing back. The fire, the smoke, the way little Lena had shoved him toward the only exit, sacrificing her own chance to escape. The Graves family had taken him in, erased his past, and left her behind to rot in the system. But the real twist? Daniel wasn't just covering up the truth. He'd started the fire, a reckless act to force Alexander's adoption into the Graves dynasty, ensuring he'd have a powerful ally for life. The guilt had eaten at Daniel for years, and when Lena tracked him down, he saw a way out. Help her destroy Alexander, and the debt would be paid. The gun trembled in Daniel's hand as he leveled it at Alexander. Asterisk, I'm sorry, he choked out. But before he could pull the trigger, Lena moved. Faster than any of them expected. She lunged, knocking the weapon aside just as it discharged, the bullet embedding itself in the rotting ceiling. The struggle was brief but brutal, ending with Daniel sprawled on the floor, unconscious, and Lena pressing the gun into Alexander's palm. Your turn, she said, her voice raw. Asterisk, finish it. Just like your family finished mine. Asterisk, for a heartbeat. He considered it. The power, the rage, the years of lies. It would be so easy. But then he looked at her, really looked, and saw the girl who'd saved him. The woman who'd loved him enough to let him hate her. And he dropped the gun. The police found Daniel first, his confession spilling out in incoherent sobs. The media spun it as a tragic breakdown, the fall of a loyal friend. But Alexander knew the truth. Some wounds never heal. He offered Lena everything. Money, security, a life far from the wreckage of their past. But she just smiled, that same enigmatic smile, and pressed a kiss to his cheek. You finally see me, she murmured. And then she was gone, vanishing into the dawn like a dream. He could have chased her. Could have demanded answers, closure, a happy ending. But for the first time in his life, Alexander Graves let something go. Months later, a package arrived at his office. No return address, just a small wooden box. Inside lay a single key and a note. Asterisk, for when you're ready to remember. Asterisk, the key fit the lock of a tiny bookstore in a city he'd never visited. Its shelves lined with stories of survival, of second chances. And behind the counter? Lena. Not the vengeful phantom from the rain, not the broken girl from the fire. Just a woman, whole and healing. She met his gaze, and for the first time, there was no anger, no games. Just silence. And in that silence, Alexander realized the truth. This wasn't an ending, it was the first page of something new. Oh, tell me, would you have pulled the trigger? Walked away? Or would you have done what he did, and finally learned that love isn't about possession, it's about letting go? Maybe that's the real twist. Not the lies, not the betrayal, but the moment a billionaire who thought he was immune to love discovered he was human after all.